Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our July Cabinet meeting. I have a habit of switching it on and then accidentally touching it and switching it off again. So apologies for my lack of ability with the microphone. Yes, welcome to our July Cabinet meeting, everybody. As you'll be aware, because of the general election, we didn't have a Cabinet meeting in June. That means a considerable amount of business is being carried forward to today, so we've got a lot to get through. And clearly we need to consider it comprehensively and in detail and ask questions and make comments. But also I'd ask if we could try and tend err on the side of brevity. That would be very helpful, given I'm not sure what time sunset is, but let's hope we can all get home well before that. So first of all, I've had apologies from Councillor Wright. Councillor Lubbock is subbing, and also Councillor Galvin and Councillor Schmierer is subbing. So welcome to you both. Item 2, are there any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Item 3 is public questions and petitions. One public question from Dr. Sarah Eglinton has been received for me. So Dr. Eglinton, would you care to come and join us? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, will the Cabinet write to the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government to call in the Norwich Western Link planning application and hold a planning inquiry on their determination?
Thank you very much, Dr. Eglinton, for your question. I can add little to the answer I gave to Councillor Fox last night at our council meeting, which was: the proposed Norwich Western Link Road, although entirely outside of our administrative area, is a very significant strategic road scheme that will have long-term impacts on transport in the city and county. With the submission of the planning application, it has reached an important stage, and it is important that this council considers its response carefully. It is intended to prepare a report for Cabinet on the 11th of September for this response to be agreed. Officers are engaging with staff at the County Council to ensure that flexibility in the timetable will be allowed to enable us to undertake this proper consideration. Until Cabinet has been able to consider relevant information and reaches a decision on the proposed response to the consultation, our position on the scheme remains as set out in January 2022, when it was resolved not to support either the Transport for Norwich strategy or the Western Link project contained within it. And you may ask one supplementary question, Dr. Eglinton.
Thank you. I think you've actually answered my supplementary question. I did gather from last night's meeting that there's going to be a report submitted in September, so I just wanted to ensure really that you have made arrangements with Norfolk County Council that your views on the link road would be considered. That's obviously after the consultation deadline of the 18th of July.
I believe we have got that agreed. I'm looking at Graham. Clearly we're not a formal consultee because the Western Link doesn't run through the city, but we are able to respond as another organisation, which we will do. Graham, did you want to clarify where we are with County Council?
Just for clarity, it's an ongoing discussion. Clearly, if you believe an applicant is waiting for us to consider it, we'll have to come back. We haven't confirmed that one way or the other. It's an ongoing discussion.
Thank you. Okay. Item 4 is questions to Cabinet members. There are none received. So item 5 is to approve the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of March 2024. Can I see those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Item 6 is progress on motion 12C, approved at Council on the 30th of January 2024, and this is Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Chair. This report is regarding motion 12C, as Councillor Stannard says, approved at full Council in January. The motion stating it costs more to be poor, tackling the poverty premium in Norwich. This report specifically refers to progress against Resolution 8C, which stated that the Council would take reasonable endeavours to bring forward a Norwich Affordable Financial Services Strategy feasibility study to June Cabinet. Now obviously June Cabinet was cancelled due to the general election, and we're reporting progress on this work stream today. The recommendations of the report is to note the work undertaken so far and agree with the feasibility study being progressed in parallel with the business planning elements of the Council's community-led plan, particularly the Fair and Norwich corporate priority, with the feasibility study to be considered in full by Cabinet at a future date when the business plan has been fully developed. In making progress towards the feasibility study, the first strand of this work has been focused on gathering evidence of need. The Local Government Association advises that local approaches to the provision of affordable credit should be evidence-based and built on a robust and detailed understanding of the needs of the local communities. This is vital to maximising the effectiveness and value of local delivery, ensuring its scale meets local needs and that it can be targeted to those who need it most. As such, we've been working on building a holistic evidence base, including modelling of the potential scale and cost of existing high-cost credit use, enabling the Council to make informed decisions about work in this field. This has involved analysis of the latest poverty reports from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, Fabian Society and Fair by Design, and consideration of available data sets across access to support services, access to formal debt solutions, credit scores, and relevant data from NCAN, Norfolk Community Advice Network, Financial Inclusion Consortium, Norfolk Insight, as well as indices of deprivation such as our own Readers data. In addition to this, we are seeking data around particular financial vulnerability markers. The second strand of the work stream has been mapping the existing provision. Firstly, this has involved dialogue with local credit unions, Wherry Dragon and Norfolk First, which was formerly known as the West Erland Credit Union. Since the publication of this report, we've also had meetings with Norwich Credit Union. These have been initiated to understand the existing offer in Norwich, identifying the scale of demand and any emerging opportunities and challenges. We also hope to speak with local banks. We hope to ascertain how applicants are assessed for credit and the level of loan rejection rates. Secondly, we are examining the prevalence of illegal money lenders and the use of buy now, pay later schemes, liaising with Norfolk County Council with regard to the former, and the Financial Inclusion Consortium and the Local Citizens Advice regarding the latter. We will also analyse Financial Conduct Authority data. Thirdly, we're holding conversations with the Council's own housing team to assess data on the homelessness prevention loans that we issue, as well as the contents insurance uptake for social housing tenants, which, as the motion noted, is currently very low. We're also keen to consider opportunities for social tariffs for energy and water use, looking at the potential of automated referrals and better promotion of these benefits. The third strand of this feasibility study has been looking at the work of other local authorities and public sector bodies in affordable financial services. This has included engaging with the Local Government Association on their work with a group of 7 councils on a reshaping financial support programme. And there's a very interesting LGA report from a couple of years ago, which I suggest people have a look at. We will be looking at considering the benefits of a commission model against whether councils are best placed to offer affordable finance, particularly considering the reputational risks for a council if it is seen to promote vulnerable individuals' use of credit during people further into debt. Final strand of the work stream will be looking at the costs of developing a Norwich affordable financial services strategy. This work has not commenced as yet and clearly will involve a lot of work in the coming weeks and months. But finally, I'll finish by noting that the EDI action plan is scheduled for completion in December 2024. And we need to be mindful that if we do take forward such a strategy, if commissioned, it would be a major strand of work within this plan and would undoubtedly involve significant resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. An enormous amount of work in progress there, so thank you for that. Are there any comments to Councillor Giles' questions, should I say, or comments from Cabinet members? No, okay, so I'll go to opposition representatives. Julie Martin?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, and also thank you very much for bringing this report. As many of you will probably be aware, inequality is an area that I'm obviously particularly keen to see eradicated. Basically, just to echo what Lucy, who can't be here, unfortunately, said, which is that it's great to see the progress on this report. So thank you from her as well. Another mention tackling socio-economic disadvantage is a key priority area, and right so within the Council to move the adopted equality strategy, and also within the new community-led corporate plan, and this is clearly urgent due to the ongoing cost of living crisis that we all are aware of from speaking to our constituents and also personally. But for me also, there's, I suppose, with everything like these lines, there's a human element, of course, as well, in particular, though also in the public health arena. And we know, for example, that poor people are likely to die younger, and quoted in council before, there's a train line in Glasgow that basically you go from the west end, the richer part of Glasgow, to the east end, and you lose 2 years per stop. Basically, within the space of about 10 miles, you lose 20 years of life expectancy. And obviously, with things like this, there is, as I mentioned, the public health dimension. So I've got two questions, if I may. Have you looked at the sort of public health consequences of this strategy and the benefits that hopefully will emerge from it? And then also, can you sort of give me a sort of indication of what the next steps and the timescale for completion of this strategy will be, please?
I'll pretend that's one question.
If I may.
Okay, yeah.
I would suggest reading the Local Government Association report on the case studies that have been taken forward by various local authorities, primarily unitary authorities, I would say, using funding secured from Fair for All Finance, which has been funded by the government's dormant assets funding. And various academic studies on this produced by the think tanks, which I noted in my report, discuss in detail the issues caused by lack of access to affordable credit, in addition to other poverty premiums, including the impacts on health and well-being. So I would suggest having a read with them. And they're very illustrative. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Anyway, in terms of taking the feasibility study forwards, yes, as you can see, extensive work has been done on gathering evidence of need and mapping existing provision. That's been the focus today. And I think the focus going forwards is now looking at what are the resources that would be required and what are the potential sources of those resources if we were to produce such a strategy. That would be progressed in line with the business planning aspect of the new community-led plans, Fairer Norwich aspect, and the production of the EDI action plan. The EDI action plan is scheduled to be completed by the end of this calendar year, if that gives good indication. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, so this is a report for information. I don't believe
Judith.
Oh, Judith, did you want to? No. Yeah, so this is your report, an update for information. We're just noting it, I believe. So, are we happy to note the update? Yes. Thank you.
So we're noting the work undertaken, but also agreeing that the work be progressed in parallel with the business planning elements of the new community-led plan, which wasn't in place at the time of this motion being passed in January. So members are
content with that? Yes, we are. Great, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Let's move on then to item 7. This is Norwich City Council control of alcohol public space protection order. It's a key decision, and it's Councillor Jones to introduce Beth.
Interesting. The laptop decided to look itself again. I think it's doing it.
Pleased to say my papers haven't locked themselves.
Well, hopefully we'll all be moving to paperless. It'll be better. I'm really pleased that we're able to bring this forward. We had an alcohol public spaces protection order part of the city for many years, but actually moving forward, the idea was, given that we were renewing this, it was to look at actually what are the needs of the city. So as part of that consultation and responding to concerns from residents and contributions from police and stakeholders, we've reviewed that and we're bringing forward a wider one with the extended boundary this time. So the consultation has resulted in a recommendation to implement a new control of alcohol PSPA with an extended citywide boundary for a period of 3 years. And I think this follows on from our previous PSPA where we looked at vehicle nuisance, and it's very easy to be very fixed on the area that's currently got concern, but as we all know, that you address something in one area and often the problem shifts elsewhere. So rather than us going a sort of ongoing cycle of having to come back over and over again, this gives a sort of broader approach to it. And I think it's very important to say this isn't about cracking down on every single bit of alcohol. This is about problem drinking in public spaces and antisocial behaviour that relates from that, and alcohol-related crime. So it's very clear what this is for. It's and the police are on board with how we'd use this. They were primarily providing the enforcement side of this, but escalation of further breach of the order would be at the discretion of us as the council. We would have the ability to use fixed penalty notices of prosecution. So I think in terms of ensuring that we have a safe city where people feel they can walk around and not be concerned and impacted by alcohol-related antisocial behaviour, this is an important tool, but one of many tools. So I think we should see it in that context, that it's not a be-all and end-all, but it's adding something else in that helps make and keep this a really pleasant city to live in and a safe one to walk around.
Thanks, Beth. And I think that you made the point well that if you only have small areas, then you just push the problem somewhere else. The way to resolve it is to cover the entire area. So thank you for that. Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet members, please? We're all content. Okay. Judith has first question, and Martin.
Yes, thank you, Mike. It's quite pertinent because this afternoon I received an email from a resident in Eton. It's to you, but he copied me in to say he was today accosted by 4 what he thought to be drunken youths in the city. And what we're going to do about it, basically. But I'd like to ask in practical terms, if I go back to him, what should he have done this afternoon when he was confronted by 4 youths who he felt under the influence of, and they were shouting very loud, abusive language, and people were sort of moving away from it, as he did, he just moved away from it. With this PSPO in place, once it's in place and communicated to the public, what do we expect to the public to do as a consequence of this?
It's a very good question, and just to say, it's I hadn't read that email, but it was literally this afternoon, was it? But it's disturbing if that's happening in Norwich City Centre, that people are being accosted by. drunken youths and verbally abused, and that's unacceptable. Yeah.
The advice would remain exactly the same as it would have been before, that needs to be reported to the police. It's a public order thing as well. The PSPO is part of a range of tools that the police have, and it's us enabling them to have that extra tool as part of their response. But it might be that actually responding under the PSPO in that circumstances might not be the appropriate action. There might be other things the police want to do because it's public safety as well. But it's adding that in for one of the things they can look at. But anything like that, you've got potential sort of aggression by the sound of this, that actually that does need to be reported to the police. This isn't a separate response, it's seeing it as part of an extra package of tools that the police have that we can provide and support in enabling enforcement in the city.
Thank you, Beth. Martin.
Yeah, thank you very much. As a city centre councillor, I basically echo what Judith has said there, and it's not unique that this happens. It actually happens to residents who walk down Fitzwise Road, you walk down Riverside Walk, you walk down Hancock Green, and I could go on and list a load of these locations. And I know that the city centre, and I know the PSPO did lapse a little bit, but it is an important tool that the police do appreciate having, and I'm very much in favour of it, and it regularly comes up at snap meetings. So I'm really pleased that this is coming, and I will wholeheartedly support it, of course. And it's not actually that draconian. It is actually just asking people to pour away their alcohol, and should they be believe that they are going to cause antisocial behaviour, or are they, in reality, are causing antisocial behaviour. And if you have a look at Scotland's legislation, a lot of bylaws, just drinking alcohol outside, you can be fined £40 or £50. So actually, that context is actually very, very light touch. But I think you're right, Councillor James, you mentioned about that it's one part of a whole tool of things. And I suppose for me, and I know this goes beyond what the PSPO is talking about, I'd like to just ask your opinion on it. For me, I would like to see a ban on super strength alcohol. What would your view on that be, please?
I suppose that comes on a national level, but I suppose with my nurse's hat on, I have very strong views that probably I need to keep maybe slightly separate from my political role potentially, but I see, unfortunately, the risk with super strength alcohol often is impacting some of the poorest parts of the community because they're buying that because of the cost side of it. So I think it's part of a whole. Again, banning that on its own actually doesn't solve the problem. I think I would be concerned around it, but it's actually around in the context of poverty and actually why is someone drinking and the access to services that address that, and then the need to go to super strength alcohol because they can't afford to buy other things. So I think it's, again, we can look at lots of little things that look very good, saying we'll ban that or we'll ban that, and the health implications of it are horrendous, but just banning it wouldn't work on its own and addressing the underlying problems. I suppose the other thing I did want to add is obviously we're talking about the city centre a lot, and I think Judith could probably back me up in terms of areas that have student population and other areas where we've got late night economy that isn't just the city centre. And actually that was one of the reasons I was really passionate about that we needed to look at the PSPO in a broader sense. That actually issues around alcohol-related antisocial behaviour are not solely in the city centre. Depending on events that are going on and things like that, there can be things across the city. So that's one of the reasons for the broader approach to it as well.
Good, thank you. That was comprehensive answer. Thanks, Beth. So we'll move to the recommendation now. It's recommended that the Control of Alcohol Public Space Protection Order is made for the period of 3 years to May 2027, and that the boundary for the PSPO be extended to cover the whole of Norwich City District. Can I see those in favour, please? Thank you. It's unanimous. We'll move on now to item 8. That's the Corporate Performance Report 2023-24. So we're on page 41, and we're being recommended to review progress on the KPIs for 2023-24. So in the past year, the Council developed and approved a new community-led plan, We Are Norwich. From April 2024, performance will be reporting against this new plan. However, in order to provide consistency, this report measures progress against the former corporate plan and sets out progress from April 2023 to March 2024. Overall performance for the past year has remained steady compared with 2022-2023, with positive movement across the majority of indicators. A breakdown of all the indicators can be found in paragraph 6 of the report. In terms of improvements, in comparison with last year, there are notable improvements in the following 3 areas. Firstly, the percentage of complaints responded to within 10 days. A task and finish group has helped to drive the performance, which continues to improve. Secondly, the number of private sector homes made safe has increased by 59 properties. And thirdly, there were 126 affordable homes built, purchased or enabled this year, which exceeds the target of 76 homes, and this shows the Council's commitment to affordable home delivery. In terms of areas where we are below target and we're taking steps to improve performance, this includes that there are 5 KPIs that have reached a level where we will intervene, and action is required to bring them back on target. An explanation of the performance in these areas can be found in the report in the section entitled Performance Measures Summary 2023-2024, but includes areas such as re-let times to council homes, number of new homes completed, and the number of private sector installations completed. In terms of future reporting, the new community-led plan We Are Norwich, launched in April this year, we are now able to develop a new business planning process and performance framework that will enable us to realise the plan and monitor its progress. So the recommendation is that Cabinet note progress on the KPIs of 2023-2024. I'd just like to ask, is there any officer comment on this, on the report? No? Okay, let's move on to questions then from Cabinet members or comments. Adam, Councillor Giles.
Thank you. I just want to highlight congratulating our benefits department for meeting their KPI for processing new housing benefit claims against a target of 19.5 days. We averaged 17.3 days across the year. And for council tax reduction against a target of 35 days, yes. We've got an average of 31.79. So just to congratulate the benefits department on that performance and note that in the report.
Absolutely, and actually where performance has improved, we should be congratulating all the officers involved with that. But the areas you've highlighted are particularly important to note. Okay, let's move on to questions from group leaders, representatives. Judith?
Yes, thank you. Just to highlight the average relet time for council homes on target 79 days. What plans are in place to try and improve that and take account of the cost, availability of materials, staff, standard and volume of work as well. And how can we address those to reduce the time?
Councillor Jones will answer that, Beth.
So, the relet time is something very closely monitored. Something we've noticed increasingly is, yes, we are actually on a good trajectory in terms of what's going on with voids in that sense, but what is coming in as voids is what would previously have been often lots of minor works. We're finding the properties have often been occupied for 20, 30 plus years, things that are coming at the moment, and they haven't, people have often declined the kitchen upgrade, the bathroom upgrade, so rather than doing one bit of minor works, we're often doing a number of bigger bits of work. So one of the things we're exploring at the moment is how we get in earlier and why are people turning stuff down, so that they can be done as the course of general programme of works, so that when it comes to them being vacant and being handed back to us, that we're not having to do quite that range of works all at once. So that can significantly impact on the relet time, because if previously it had been going in, tidying some stuff up, maybe doing one bit of minor works when you've got to do a full kitchen upgrade and a bathroom upgrade. That extends your timescales. So that is something that we've been discussing over the last couple of months, is what is it that people are putting people off having that work done, maybe, and how do we ensure that we're doing that. Also, one of the other things we're looking at is if we think there's a likelihood of properties going to be handed back, or we know it's going to be, getting staff in sooner to look at what needs to be done as well, in terms of so then planned works can then be put in place quicker. So there are a number of different things. Those are just a couple off the top of my head, but it's something that I monitor on a monthly basis when we get time, and we're constantly looking at things that we can do that will speed that up. But I'm really pleased with the improvements around contractors working on that. Some really positive work going on with that. Also, those times can be impacted when we've got some stuff that had more significant issues that is now being dealt with and coming back into being relet. Then that has an impact on days as well. So we've got properties that maybe due to structural issues, things like that, had been sat to kind of one side, and now actually we're getting through those bigger bits of work. So there's a number of different things that impact on that. But I think understanding that and sharing more information around what's going on with that is something I'm keen to do going forward, and what some of the work is going on, particularly around things like whole house improvements, that some of those voids have had that kind of approach as well. Gasway's been doing, for example, some amazing work around that. So yes, the time looks like it fluctuates, but that is the reasons for it we dig into on a monthly basis. And whilst can't change the fact that someone at the moment has declined those things previously, that looks to be the right reason for it. But we've now got to take a step back and go, okay, we're not going to accept that bit. Yes, that's happened, but we need to understand why and take it back a step. So we are being proactive, I can assure you. Sorry, a long-winded response.
A very full and comprehensive response. Thank you, Beth. Martin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, I was going to pick up that potential question as well, so thanks for that answer. The other point I was going to ask about was item 14 of the report, which is on page 45, refers to the number of homeless households living in temporary accommodation, which it seems to jump again compared to the same period last year. And while in terms of raw numbers, a jump of 46% to 75%, unfortunately, a 63% increase. And it is well documented that people living in temporary accommodation have a difficult time of it for many families, especially when it's away from their support networks. So I was basically wondering what you've done to look into the stories behind these figures, for example, and basically what's being done to reduce that length of time.
So I'll take that, various different parts to that. One, we're very, very conscious about what we use as temporary accommodation now and where we're placing people, and that's something that there's been a shift in. So keeping people as close as we possibly can to support networks. That as the rate of people needing that accommodation increases, and that is not just us, we're talking across the country. And I think if you look at our numbers in temporary accommodation compared to other local authorities that are comparable, we have very, very small numbers comparatively to some. But, one is too many, but it's the need for it that's the bigger question. That actually, we've got people who, yes, we've had a change of government now, but this is the legacy. And it's that increased need as interest rates have gone up, as people haven't been able to afford their homes, there's increased presentation. Alongside that, we've seen an increased demand in terms of, as the asylum process has been sped up and people have been going through that process, then actually given the focus of people in Norwich, then there's that demand coming to us as well. So it's a multi-layered thing. Both we've got an increase in local presentation, but also increase in people coming through the asylum system as well. So yes, that's a number that's monitored on a monthly basis, and it's concerning, yes, but it's not surprising. And there's been a sort of gradual trend, but it's then being really clear about making sure we're looking at how we monitor the type of housing we're using, because realistically we're going to have to use temporary accommodation, because it's how we respond there and then to someone, and if they're in need, we need to be getting them somewhere safe. We haven't, as we know, we have a significant number of people waiting for homes, so if then people have to go into temporary accommodation, at least they're housed right now and they're safe. So yes, the numbers are, but I don't think we can put that on anything we've done as a local authority. I'm pleased that we're responding to that need, but I think we need to be aware of the challenges that then gives us, because actually it's then about finding enough adequate temporary accommodation, particularly while there's other demands of things like Serco looking for accommodation and people like that, that actually we're really clear about what we expect from temporary accommodation, and then other providers other local authorities are using temporary accommodation in the city. So there's that ongoing demand and kind of battle for the best stuff as well. So it is challenging, I won't make any bones about that, but hopefully change of government, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, we'll be heading in the other direction.
Hear, hear. Thank you very much for that response, Beth. We move to the recommendation. It's recommended that Cabinet review progress on key performance indicators for 2023-2024. I need a proposer for that. I'll propose it. Is there a seconder? Okay, for Beth. All those in favour? Thank you. I've been reminded I should have done that for the PSPO proposal. So can we just go back, please? Beth is the proposer. Could I have a seconder? Adam, all those in favour? Thank you. Good. Let's move on now to item 9, one of a number of reports Councillor Kendrick Paul has to present. This is the 2023-24 provisional outturn. Paul.
It's a nice way you all can listen to my voice now. This report sets out the Council's provisional outturn position for the financial year 23-24. The report covers the Council's general fund and housing revenue account and includes information in relation to both its revenue and capital positions. The report recommends us Cabinet to note the provisional £4.22 million underspend on the general fund revenue account and the 0.32 million underspend on the housing revenue account. To note the provisional 7.16 million underspend against the general fund's capital programme and the 8.09 million underspend against the housing revenue account's capital programme. And to note the general fund and HRA balances and the transfer to earmarked reserves. The report also recommends that the Cabinet delegates to the Chief Finance Officer, in consultation with myself as a Cabinet member, the approval of carry forwards of underspends from the 23-24 capital budget to the financial year 24-25 capital programme and approve adjustments to the 24-25 capital fund, general fund capital programme to enable external funding to be utilised for projects. Throughout 23-24, Cabinet has received quarterly revenue and capital budget monitoring reports. Budget monitoring and provisional outturns for financial year 23-24 have been largely impacted by one-off factors such as higher interest rates and lower calls on reserves. Council remains above its prudential minimum levels of general fund and housing revenue account reserves and continues to maintain a good level of earmarked reserves. So I'm pleased to be able to propose this report, and which illustrates the positive management by this Council of its resources and endorse the recommendations of this report for approval by the Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. So first of all, are there any questions or comments from Cabinet colleagues, please? Adam.
Thank you, Paul, for that report. On a micro level within my portfolio, I want to congratulate the staff at the Norman Centre who have seen admission income, membership income, lettings income and other sports charges all increase on the previous year. We're seeing the income lines increasing year on year in the Northern Centre, which is in contrast to much of the council-ran leisure sector across the country, which is experiencing significant crises. The rental income is reduced, but I would like to highlight why that's the case. It's because the nursery at the Northern Centre, Norfolk County Council, decided they would stop paying the rent. However, we've enabled them to stay, just paying the service charge. I think it's really important that there's an affordable and accessible nursery available for residents in High Cross. So I just want to congratulate the staff around the centre.
And it's unfortunate that the County Council made that decision, but I'm sure we've done the right thing. Okay, are there any other questions from the representatives of group leaders? Martin?
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a couple of things, particularly regarding the HRA account. We understand there were something in the region of about £8 million. And I understand that there is some spends there which were really good in terms of disabled adaptation, as well as some savings which are obviously good to see. But there are also underspends, in particular on fire doors, and I think that's something like to the tune of £2 million. And also another £1 million on other upgraded doors and security. I suppose my question is what are you going to say to sort of residents, for example, of Normandy Tower and other buildings like that, where basically despite the 5-year programme needs to be impacted as fast as possible, in terms of why there's been this delay, please?
So, I think Beth is offering to respond.
Yeah,
I think what I'd say to residents is I want to have the right doors fitted in the right way. This isn't just a problem for us. Nationally, there are issues around supply, and we are going to, I am really pleased the really diligent way that we have managed in terms of checking doors, getting them tested. Yes, there are there is a bit of a delay right now, but they will be installed. But I want to get this right, and that's the crucial thing. Where we're using contractors, we want to ensure that they have the right training and they are doing it in a way that makes sure our residents are safe, and that's something we won't compromise on. I think when we come to looking at my report later on around complaint performance and service improvement, it mentions about compliance around safety and around fire safety, and these things are critical, and it's something we have been on a learning journey with, and we take incredibly seriously. So yes, the doors aren't there yet, but when we have them, they will be, and we know we have a plan that's being implemented around this. We're impacted by supply chain issues, but now I have very good assurance that the doors we use will be compliant, and we are being so rigorous around ensuring that the people we use to fit them will know exactly what they are doing, and there will be no question around that. Having that assurance is really crucial going forward, so I wouldn't want to rush something. And okay, yeah, delay, there is a delay, but those will be going in. So I would rather not spend the money and then have to spend it a second time.
Absolutely, and we do know that there are supply chain issues in the construction industry and building industry in general, and we see that in a number of places, don't we, Brett? But thank you for that explanation. Excellent. Judith didn't want to ask a question on this, so let's move to the recommendations, which are on page 69. There are 6 of them, I'm presuming, Paul, you're proposing them?
I did it in my speech, actually.
Oh, okay, so, okay.
So I need a seconder.
I just check you haven't changed your mind. And is there a seconder, please? Beth, okay, all those in favour? Thank you. So we now stay with Paul. We're moving on to the 2023-24 Quarter 4 Risk Register. There's an exempt item as well below the line, so it would be helpful after Paul's introduced the item if anybody wishes to discuss the item below the line, if they can indicate. But we'll come back to that. Paul.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report provides an update to the Council's Corporate Risk Register based on the position for Q4, that is up to March the 31st. The report recommendation asks the Cabinet to note the identified risks and the direction of travel for each risk. The Corporate Risk Register is shown at Appendix A of the second report, included on the exempt agenda. The position at the end of Q3, that is up to December 31st of last year, was reported to the Cabinet in February. There have not been significant changes in the Council's risk profile since that. The environment in which the Council operates remains relatively high risk, as the financial environment is both challenging in terms of economic and funding position. As a result of the Corporate Risk Register will continue to be monitored and progress reported to the Cabinet. So I would formally propose the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet colleagues? And is there anything on the green papers you wish to raise? No. Okay. So I'll move to Group Leader Representatives. Judith?
Yes, on Appendix A, the Corporate Risk 27, failure to deliver acceptable levels of performance in the management of HMO licences.
So is that in the exempt section? Is it on a white page or green page?
Page 92.
Page 92. Thank you. That's good. Okay. So who'd like to pick that up?
This is a technical question. Can I ask the officers to?
Absolutely.
It was just to ask what is the problem?
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer. Earlier in the year, February, we became aware that should have been quite significant backlogs and built up, both through COVID and also subsequently because of some distraction staff that were involved in the process that we're having of investing in and improving in the system of digital transformation. That could create a potential backlog that we became aware of. And so actually that provides the risk of statutory compliance effectively, because it's quite a serious backlog of built up. Effectively there's been a small team working in that HMO team in the time accessible. It took about 2 months to retrain to put that situation back. So backlogs have been tackled, and every application that needs to be dealt with have been dealt with in statutory compliance. And so that took roughly 2 to 3 months to actually resolve. And what we're seeing here now is a situation effectively towards the risk amongst to much improve the situation now in terms of the level.
Thank you, Graham. Martin, did you have a question?
It's exactly the same
It was
question.
exactly the same question. Great minds think alike, obviously. Okay, let's move to the recommendation. So we're on page 89, I'm on the wrong page, excuse me. So the recommendation is that we note the identified risks and the direction of travel.
I formally proposed it in my speech.
You did.
And I haven't changed my mind.
And not only that, I haven't forgotten, which is all good. Is there a seconder, please? Adam. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. We now move on to item 11. It's Paul again. This is the Gender Pay Gap Report for 2023. We get a rest after this, Paul.
Yes, only for a little while. It is a statutory requirement for the Council to report its gender pay gap by the 30th of March each year. Gender pay gap is calculated on a snapshot date of 31st of March each year. The snapshot date of the gender pay gap report was the 31st of March indeed. The Council met its statutory duty to report the gender pay gap on the Government's website and the Council website by March 30th. And the gender pay report is being brought here for Cabinet members to note a very positive position on the gender pay gap and to highlight some of the actions that have taken place and are planned. The gender pay gap is calculated in accordance with the Government's requirements using the median and the mean. You will see from the report the Council does not have a pay gap when using the median calculation. there is a small gap of 5% when using the mean calculation. The median is generally considered to be the more accurate representation of average pay, as the mean calculation can be skewed by a few individuals on very high or very low pay. We do not have any payments to men or women that meet the criteria for calculating the bonus pay gap. I ask you to, I formally propose to ask you to note the actions taken on page 144 of the report and the recommendations, in particular the intention to report ethnicity and disability pay gaps from this year onwards. Therefore, I formally propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. So, are there any questions, first of all, or comments from Cabinet colleagues? Everybody's content. Group leader representatives, yeah, Martin.
Well, I'm going to start with a comment very quickly, just to say I'm really pleased to see that you basically committed to, well, first of all, that this report as well, generally the conclusion of it, the findings, but also that you basically the intention to increase the amount of leavers that complete exit interviews, and that's brilliant to ensure that these include protected characteristics, so a wholehearted support there. So the question though is that do you have any means of identifying the gender pay gap within organisations that are kind of ancillary organisations to Norwich City Council, things like NCSL, interims, consultants, that kind of thing, and are there any plans to measure that going forward?
Can I ask the officers to reply to the technical question?
Who'd like to pick that up from the officers? Lou. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Schmira. I'm going to have to come back to you on that. Dawn Bradshaw, who's our lead for HR, is unable to attend today. Can I respond to you separately on that?
Yeah, if you can also CC in the rest of the group, that would be lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we move to the recommendation on page 93. Already proposed formally by Councillor Kendrick. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hampton, all those in favour? Thank you very much. We move on now to item 12, which is the Norwich City Council Productivity Plan. This is something which we were required to produce by the previous government. We'll see how the new government receives it, of course. And the report informs members about the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities letter requesting the submission of a productivity plan and to present our draft response. It highlights the Council's current initiatives and outlines what the Council has achieved so far, as well as the future plans for the Council set out in the new corporate plan. The recommendation is that Cabinet review our response to the productivity plan, request, assess even whether it effectively represents the Council and provide their endorsement. Do officers have anything they'd like to add? No? Okay. Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet colleagues? No. Are there any questions from group leader representatives? No. It is what it is. So thank you very much. So I'll formally propose the recommendation which I read out in just a moment. Do I have a seconder? Paul, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 13 is Councillor Kendrick introducing scrutiny committee recommendations to Cabinet.
Yes, I would just like to formally bring this report to the Council's attention. I wasn't actually at the scrutiny committee meeting concerned, but I'm sure there are others who are probably better placed than Emma to deal with this item.
And I think it's for Councillor Hampton and Emma to respond, as both these items are in your portfolio.
Yes, thank you. I'll respond to these. They are both now in my portfolio. At the time of the Parks Scrutiny Committee, it was in Councillor Giles's portfolio, but I will do my best to briefly sum up on that one, and will thank you very much to Councillor Giles for leading on it at the time. So the Parks and Green Spaces strategy, I'll keep relatively brief on this one. I'm really pleased Scrutiny did choose to look at this topic. We know from the extensive consultation we carried out for the corporate plan that this is an absolute top priority for our residents, and we're really lucky to have lots of high quality parks and open spaces in Norwich, and that's really evidenced by the news this week that we're being awarded 6 green flags for city parks, 3 for the first time, Ketts Heights, Jenny Lind and Hyam Park, and it was a real pleasure to visit each of these yesterday to meet with Friends Group and celebrate this achievement. But we do need a strategic look going forward at how we maintain that success and bring other areas up to the high standard they've got the potential to be. But I'm going to keep this brief because the strategy itself is due to come back to us here in September, and we think we've incorporated all these recommendations into that, so the proof is in the pudding really, and I'm sure we can have a wider discussion on it then. But as I say, otherwise I'd just like to thank officers for all their work on it, and Adam for leading on this so far. As for the Love Norwich scrutiny recommendations on the work around fly tipping and other environmental crime and antisocial behaviour, this is obviously a topic that scrutiny has spent quite a bit of time and effort on over the years, so I'll do a bit more thorough job of going through each of these points. And over that time, since it was several years ago when they first brought this onto the agenda, we've made some really good developments and progress as a council, from increase in fixed penalty notices issued for environmental crime, the launch of the Clean Streets programme and Love Norwich Hub, and installation of CCTV cameras at fly tipping hotspots, though we fully recognise there's still more work we can do. So I'll go through these relatively one by one, but there's a couple that if I don't mention them, it just means we agree we'll keep doing that, so regards to working with businesses and community payback, that sort of thing. But on the first point around ward councillors being consulted in future on locations of CCTV cameras in their wards, certainly happy that councillors are consulted and the views fed in, but I would reiterate that on the whole locations are going to be picked on an evidence-led basis and by looking at need across the whole city, not just within kind of individual wards as units, but yes, we would be keen to involve ward councillors in that. Following on from that point too, that ward councillors are permitted access to land subject to training. The land system isn't exactly a live system. It's based on randomised inspections on a 2-monthly basis, and reports are generated after the close of each reporting period, so I'm not really sure there's much value in giving councillors access as such to the system, but distributing information once it's been reviewed should be possible and could be helpful. And more broadly on this one, the intention is always happening that we're developing a Clean Streets dashboard to inform activity and intentions and to monitor the success they're having, and this can be shared with members routinely, and the intention is for this to be ready to do so for the first time in around about August. And I think that also covers point 9 here about providing information on how the council is performing against its targets. On the third point about consulting on the provision of new tamper-proof bins to avoid bins being left open, I think this was raised in the context of Nolan Grove at the meeting itself, and engagement and tweaks have been made there, so I think that specific issue is now resolved, but I think we need to manage expectations around the prospect of consulting fully whenever bins and different bin types are installed, but what we can improve on, I think, and have learned from this about, is making sure there is early communication with residents about the benefits of new units and, if necessary, how to use them. And these new bin units are installed generally when there is need for a new approach and using good practice and case studies from elsewhere, so that they should be effective means of dealing with the issues we've identified, and generally we would be keen to get these installed. There was a point about number 5, best practice, officers exploring best practice for waste management and recycling in the UK and abroad. Officers are continually looking certainly at UK best practice. There are several examples of that cited in the original scrutiny report, and that continues. Officers were in Hounslow yesterday talking to other councils about bin storage solutions, so that's ongoing. I think it was Councillor Carrington in the meeting who mentioned about looking abroad at examples, because climate change and the need to adapt to perhaps warmer temperatures in the future, which I think was a really valid point to raise and something we can increasingly be looking at. point 6, this has been a theme throughout all the scrutiny sessions on this, investigating whether an annual spring clean waste amnesty would be widely used by residents if advertised in advance. I think we are essentially investigating the prospect of this a bit more. As members might know, there's been 2 waste amnesties run by Business in the Community and Flagship in North Ayrshire. We'll continue to support and monitor that approach, and we're in the process of reviewing the impact reports. So this is something that is being investigated, and we're open to piloting after doing some further work on. This refers to uptake, and that was a problem when we piloted this previously in Suffolk Square and Heathgate, but there's also things to look at to do with cost, recycling rates, which probably means having more staff, therefore increasing the cost again, but it's something we're open to investigating and moving forward with. With regards to providing scrutiny committee evidence about how the target locations of the trials were picked, again this was picked up at the scrutiny committee itself, but to reiterate, fly tipping data was a key consideration, and that's one of the main aims of this programme, but it wasn't the only one, so therefore the areas picked did not correlate absolutely 100% to the fly tipping data. The first and most broad consideration was if Clean Streets was launched sort of in reaction in part to the feel that considerable efforts made to keep the city centre clean, but less so with the estates being left behind. So the broadest criteria was that it has to be focused on the estates and where people are actually out living and working in the city and have that feeling. Within that, it makes sense to look at areas with considerable council land ownership, so we can actually just get in there and act and make a difference. And another key overlay was indices of multiple deprivation data, which felt a really important consideration too, so that is how we landed at the locations we did. Point 8 on providing the scrutiny committee with a breakdown of how the £100,000 Love Norwich funding has been spent. That was addressed very directly in the report. £60,000 has been spent on procuring CCTV cameras so far, with the remainder rolled forward to this financial year, where the intention is hopefully to procure another couple of cameras, depending a little bit on how we get on with the first round. Perhaps a point of confusion on this is that there has been other work under the Love Norwich brand or meeting its aims, which has made use of other funding streams, internal or external, that have become available and which we've identified, so we've not siloed this work. We'll take any sort of opportunity to meet those aims, not just that £100,000 pot, which was a really useful pot just to be able to get on and make that first step with the cameras. I think I've essentially covered all the points somewhere, and I hope that clarifies where we're at currently with regards to progressing these recommendations. So just to thank Scrutiny again for their work on this issue, and I know it's a topic I want to revisit, so I'll look forward to that. And thank you to officers for their work in preparing the scrutiny report and taking forward these recommendations and more widely in this area. So thank you.
So we're happy to adopt them. Thank you, Emma, for that. I sense that we're happy to adopt all of these recommendations. Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet colleagues? No. Group Leader Representatives? Yes, Martin?
Yeah, just very quickly, first of all, thank you very much for that update. Councillor Hampton, I thought that was really thorough. I suppose the comment I'll get from members of my group who are on scrutiny is, can they get that update that you provided there in written form? So once you've obviously passed it at this forum here, we'll be able to provide them with that so they can see what the basically efforts are, which all the council can quite considerable on this particular area and can use this.
I can try and get it into a written form. Sorry, that was a bit of a mishmash of various notes, but obviously this is a recorded meeting, so they can also look back and see the debate and what I said as well.
Okay, thank you. Right, so Emma, presumably you're formally proposing that we adopt these recommendations?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the seconder. Paul's turn. Okay, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Now we go back to Beth for item 14, which is complaints, performance and service improvement, page 123.
Thank you. So this has got two halves. First, we've got the tenant satisfaction measures, which came about with the Social Housing Regulation Act. And then we've got the complaint performance service improvement report, which is a requirement from the Housing Ombudsman's new statutory complaint handling code from February 2024. And I'm highlighting that date because it's been quite a quick turnaround on that part of it. But it came into effect in April. We actually then didn't get the clear requirements for the reporting until the 22nd of May this year. And there was a statutory requirement that we had to publish this. And we had to hit a publication date for this information at the 30th of June. So you can understand this has been quite a quick turnaround. But we knew a lot, particularly around tenant satisfaction. That's been something that's been ongoing over the last year, and we had some idea of what we were doing. So there's been an enormous amount of work put in. I'm really impressed by the work, particularly Charlotte and others, in putting this together. And really helping us understand more, I think, about our services as well. That's what's been really interesting, to really start to actually pick apart what are people's experiences of them and where are we performing, and starting to hopefully have the opportunity for some benchmarking against other social housing providers as well. As this is the first year of this, obviously there wasn't any information shared. We didn't have anything to start from. So this is kind of day one. And I have to say I really welcome this information because it's really useful to help in our ongoing improvement plans. So I'd like to highlight, just in looking at 11 comparable councils, just in terms of publishing this data, when we looked at 11 other councils who had similar housing stocks, actually 5 of those hadn't even published their tenant satisfaction measures by the deadline. And another 2 had only done the 12 perception survey results, but not the 10 performance measures. So actually, as an authority, we've collected the information, we've published it, we've been transparent. So I think part 1, that's positive. Also, I think there's some really positive results. It really highlights compliance around health and safety, and it identifies areas for improvement, and we've been clear what our improvement plans are. So I think this is a really good benchmark for us to work from. When we're looking at comparative information, for example, around a safe home, and looking at 6 comparative councils, where I've got Manchester, South Tyneside, North Tyneside, Lewisham, Haringey, Milton Keynes, actually in the perception of that for tenants, we scored highest out of those as comparative for our housing stock numbers. So there's some very clearly identified work around complaints, but that's no surprise to us. So I don't think this tells us anything we didn't know already, but I think it puts it in a really clear way, and it's something that will be transparent, that we will be publishing annually, and we've got a clear plan around how we work forward from this. But overall satisfaction is in line with average for benchmark councils, and really welcome this as a guidance of how we go forward. Our compliance with this in terms of the Housing Ombudsman's Code, we'd been able to meet 63 of the 72 criteria initially, and by bringing this to you today, we're able to meet another 2, and we will then be 90% compliant. Looking at some other providers' responses to this, they might put themselves as compliant on something, but then when you look at the explanation, actually they're not. So I think as well, we've kind of been very kind of transparent and brutal with ourselves in some respects, that we're saying it as it is, but actually that means we can only go up on certain areas. But there are areas actually I'm actually really quite proud of in terms of the health and safety side, that has been a massive journey for us. So I look forward to the journey of the next year with this, but also learning to understand how this is done, because I think other local authorities, other housing providers, we've all had to have a take on this essentially. It's round 1 of it. So beginning of an interesting journey, but also of increased transparency and engaging new ways of measuring what our tenants experience. So an interesting report. I welcome any questions. If I can't answer them, then I will get back to you on them. But I'm really glad that it's published. We weren't able to really talk about it much because of the general election going on at the time. But it's, yeah, I think we acknowledge where we've got areas of improvement, but this is stuff that was no surprise and is already part of ongoing service improvement. Thank you.
Yes, and as you say, if you're going to make an improvement, you've got to be brutally honest with yourself. And I think also the principle of transparency and accountability is really important as well. Again, if we're going to continue to make improvements which are much needed. But overall, we're not complacent. But it's not about 90% isn't bad, but we need to work on that 10%. So, are there any questions or comments from Cabinet colleagues? No. So, Group Leader Representatives, Martin, I saw first.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I do appreciate the candor in your report, Councillor Jones. Yeah, some of the results are unacceptable. I mean, 53% of respondents report that they are, only 53% of respondents reported that they're satisfied by the way that the council listens to their views and acts upon them. 21% report that they are satisfied with the council's approach to handling antisocial behaviour complaints, and 47%, so less than half of respondents, who report that they are satisfied with the way we keep sort of communal areas clean and well maintained. And yeah, of course, that is deeply concerning. But I think that what you mentioned, though, in the fact that this is not atypical, that this is basically a thing to be possible, is down to, and we're going to say it, and I'm sure you're going to say it as well, 14 years of underinvestment in social housing, the 1% rent reduction came as a surprise to councils, and we are now seeing the impact of that basically underinvestment. So I'm really pleased that you've got your sort of the candor, you've basically identified the problems, you've got an action plan, which I think is great. In terms of that action plan, I think it's always important that you do things with people, not to them. And so my question is about how you're going to involve tenants generally as part of take them on this journey of improvements in the forthcoming however many years, please.
So taking that in a couple of parts actually, just wanted to come back to a few of the things. So you mentioned communal areas. Actually, communal areas is something we already knew that needed some work, and there's been some trials around around caretaking services, and looking at that, and then looking at how there was the opportunity for residents where that had been trialled to respond on Get Talking Norwich not that long ago actually. Things like ASB complaints, I think it's a slightly misleading one where we're concerned, because I think we take too much on as ASB. When you look at the things that are coming through the system, actually a lot of them are neighbourhood issues that wouldn't really meet the criteria of ASB if we were being compared to what other areas sometimes often use. So we kind of take on a lot more neighbour issues with that wouldn't. And it's been clear then about to people what expectations of what could be achieved under the ASB service. That service has seen a massive turnaround, increased use of behaviour orders, things, criminal behaviour orders, other tools. So I think the ASB complaints one is a slightly misleading bit, because it's about expectations of the service, and I think that's the bit where we need to be better in our communication, actually, and it's something we are looking at good neighbour guidance that would sit alongside antisocial behaviour to say, actually, these are good neighbour issues rather than an antisocial behaviour issue, and it's having that clarity. So hopefully some of these things, as we work on people's understanding of it, will then have a knock-on effect on these measures. But there's always going to be a bit of a lag with some of that. So that's ASB, communal areas. Forgive me, what was the last bit I didn't write down?
So the communal areas, there was communal areas, there was ASD and ASB, sorry, and then there was just only 53% of respondents that said they were satisfied with the way the council listens and acts on their concerns.
I think it was a surprise to me as a cabinet member taking on the portfolio originally. I attended the tenant engagement panel, but actually that's not representative of our tenants. So there is a lot of work ongoing around different ways to engage, and we've got to be more creative, because actually when we've got tenants who work, asking them to come to something during the day really isn't appropriate. Some have different levels of engagement as well. Some are keen to come and do things face to face, others just want an opportunity to say engage online or via other different forms. So it's looking at actually do take engagement to people as well. It's to do with some work in one area we're looking at to do with some building work needs to be done. I was chatting with the head of building compliance and talking about, actually, do we put up a gazebo and actually have some engagement there and have a drop-in? Actually, we've got to be more creative in the way we engage with tenants, so that's something that's very much on our radar, that we've got to look at different forms for different people and not assume it's a one-size-fits-all, because I'd rather do with someone than do two, because it's going to be far more effective if we're bringing people along on the journey, and we learn a lot more.
Excellent, and once again, so very full and comprehensive answers, so thank you very much, Beth, for those. Judith, did you have a question?
No, just to welcome the new steps that we have to take, and it is a good learning process, and I think you're right, the key is to communicate what we've learned on this exercise, and so that one thing that the tenants will know that we are listening to them, because we have taken account of what they've already said, and so hopefully more will respond, and we'll get higher satisfaction as the response to those responses improves, I suppose, really. But I think it's a good learning tool.
Excellent, thank you very much, Judith. So the recommendation is on page 123. You're formally proposing it, Beth, I presume.
I'm proposing that we welcome this and to note it.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and there's a seconder. Who'd like to do that? Emma? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 15. We're back to Paul, and this is the Norwich Unity Hub Harrow House. It's pre-decision. There's also an exempt report. So again, when we come to the conclusion of the debate, if you could indicate whether or not you'd like to go below the line, or there's anything there you wish to discuss, that would be helpful to know. But Paul, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm pleased to present a pioneering project which demonstrates how the City Council is leading the way in using its assets to achieve the greatest impact on Norwich residents. We purchased Harrow House from Norfolk County Council in 2021, so we could have a stake in East Norwich as our plans for the area move forward. The site will be a key part of our plans for the redevelopment of this part of the city. As with all large developments, these plans will take time to come to fruition. Whilst they do progress rather than leave a wonderful asset vacant, we have in front of us an exciting and limited short-term opportunity which will see Harrow House used as a base for charitable organisations in the city over the next 3 years. This proposal would see Norwich Unity Hub, a charity made up of members from the voluntary community and cultural sectors in Norwich, take on a 3-year lease for Harrow House at a peppercorn rate. Acting as the building manager and conveyor, Norwich Unity Hub plan to create a permanent and occasional co-location space for more than 30 of Norwich's charitable organisations. Our social value estimate, somewhat conservatively, estimates that this will generate more than £2.7 million worth of social value to the city and its residents over the next 3 years. The prospect of using one of our largest assets in this way demonstrates our recognition of the impact that these organisations have on the city and our commitment to the building of capacity and partnership with them to deliver our community-led plan. It shows our commitment in using our assets in the most effective way possible to deliver as much value to the city residents. Therefore, I would propose that we accept the recommendations, and I believe that Councillor Giles will be second.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And I'll seek to avoid repeating what Councillor Kendrick so eloquently said. We believe that this Norwich Unity Hub project and the granting of the lease and the awarding of the NSIL application will seek to support delivering our corporate aim in our new community-led plan of Fairer Norwich. Significant wellbeing impacts through resident engagement and the activities hosted by the organisations at Harrow House will seek to boost self-esteem, confidence and overall well-being. It will improve opportunities for disadvantaged people, including those with disabilities and access needs, young people, vulnerable people and those at risk of social isolation. The project will facilitate greater equality of opportunity, resulting in improved mental health, reduced anxiety levels, respite for carers, improved access to creative experiences and therapeutic support for residents. It will further Norwich City Council's priorities to partner with charitable organisations, using our assets to empower communities for the benefit of the residents of Norwich. Norwich Unity Hub is committed to ongoing monitoring and annual evaluation reports to determine the benefits derived from the project. This information will be shared with the City Council. The outcomes and measures identified in the original social value assessment, which for reference, will be used as the basis for these reports, looking at both the additional impact of individual organisations but also the broader benefits of co-location space. We will also collect data to identify where residents using the services are coming from, ensuring that Norwich residents are benefiting from the project. Restrictions will be placed within the lease to ensure that the long-term hire of space is restricted to BCSE groups. Only charitable organisations delivering services in Norwich and predominantly from Norwich residents will be eligible for the subsidised rate. Any charitable organisation whose average annual turnover over the previous 3 years exceeds 1 million will also not be eligible. The NSIL bid is for £282,000 over 3.5 years. This will assist to fund a project manager for the Norwich Unity Hub, with a portion of also capital expenditure to allow for some partitioning of new carrier house and secondary glazing. NSIL funding must be used to mitigate the negative impacts of growth. The NSIL bid has been scored at 90.6%. We believe the project has a very strong link to tackling growth. The issues caused by growth is A, developments around the city have made space unaffordable for many charitable organisations, with a number losing their existing affordable space due to development. Many charitable organisations are experiencing an increase in demand, with an unequal split of benefits from growth a contributing factor in this. And finally, a significant amount of recent and ongoing development in the city has been in and around the city centre in close proximity to Harrow House. As such, we believe that by granting the NSIL bid, we'll be seeking to ensure the economic growth in the city is both sustainable and inclusive for our residents, and I fully support and second the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for seconding the report. And I just echo your comments. I think both of you, this is an absolutely fantastic initiative for the local community. I'm really pleased that we're able to do this for these charitable organisations and create that social value. So questions and comments from Cabinet colleagues. I can see Claire.
Thank you. I'd like to congratulate the officers for their painstaking work and the engagement work they've been undertaking. So much detail and hard work. And Norwich Unity Hub has been outlined by my colleagues at Harrow House. It is more than just affordable space, although affordable space is in which to operate and grow is vital. It's the opportunity to collaborate and skill share. And of course, the powerful impact that volunteer hours and employment opportunities have on the wider economy in Norwich.
Absolutely, thank you for that, Claire, Councillor Kidman. Are there any other comments or questions from no Cabinet colleagues? So we go over to group leader representatives. I'll take Judith first, indicated first.
Just to add my welcome to this initiative. I think it's very timely, and for the next 3 years it offers a safe and affordable place for these charities to operate. And who knows what happens in 3 years' time? But Norwich City Council have done a very good thing to give them that 3 years of security.
Thank you, Judith. Martin.
Yeah, that's probably should have a declaration of interest by the Working Voluntary Norfolk, which is referenced here, but I don't have any executive authority in here. But just to reiterate that thanks the other councillors have already stated, both to officers and to the immunity up, basically. We know that lots and lots of office space, and therefore it's the charities who have some of the lowest incomes who are really struggling to find office space, in particular with the changing working environment post-pandemic. It is difficult to find flexible, affordable accommodation, and I really just want to welcome this decision and thank everyone involved with it. I think it's a really great step forward for the city and everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. We go to the recommendations. They've been proposed and seconded. They're on page 3 of the one of the supplementary agendas. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous, and I'm really pleased that we've been able to do that. Okay, so we move on now to item 16, which is potential acquisition of land at Anglia Square. It's a key decision. It's on the other supplementary agenda that you will have received, the thinner one, if you're not sure which. And I'll just introduce it, and apologies if you've heard some of this last night at full council, but not all of it. First of all, Anglia Square is the most important development and regeneration site in the city centre. While it includes a lively but struggling shopping centre, which is much appreciated by the local community, most of the site has been gradually abandoned over the course of the past 30 years. This follows the failure of the most recent attempt to redevelop the site. There were many reasons why Western Homes ultimately withdrew from the project, not least of which was the complexity and cost of demolition and decontamination, which in the view of their bankers made it unviable. The problem was and is that one of the first things any developer must do is to start demolishing the existing buildings before a single brick is laid or a single home or shop is built. This means that there are considerable upfront costs, which adds to the borrowing costs and in turn makes economic viability and financial risk significant problems. So we are left today with a set of run-down buildings which were built in the 1960s and which now sit destitute and empty. The former HMSO building, unoccupied for 30 years, the former NCP car park, which closed around 20 years ago, and the former Odeon Cinema, which has lain empty for almost around 10 years. The fear is that because society is so complex and therefore expensive to develop, as I've outlined, the crumbling buildings could sit there for many more years to come. This would lead to further deterioration and no chance to improve one of the most deprived areas of our city unless something very radical is done. Anglia Square sits in one of the most deprived areas of Norwich and represents many lost opportunities for that community as well as the wider city. These opportunities include much needed homes and jobs. As an indication of the size and significance of those opportunities, I would give, purely as an example, the 2,211 direct construction jobs, the 288 jobs in retail and commercial premises, the roughly 1,100 new homes and the additional spending in the area of up to £36 million a year that were calculated to arise from the most recent failed scheme. Those are huge lost opportunities and are why the redevelopment and regeneration of Anglia Square is the highest possible priority for this administration. As you will know, the owners of the site, Columbia Threadneedle, have decided to sell it, and that presents an opportunity for the council to address some of the problems that have dogged previous schemes. However, it also represents a threat to the future redevelopment of the whole site because it's being marketed in 3 lots. One lot is the main site, and the other 2 lots are the satellite car parks. If these lots are sold to different buyers, then the possibility of a comprehensive redevelopment and regeneration of the whole site becomes unlikely. It is easy to envisage a scenario where the 2 car parks are sold and the main site, with all its complexities, is left unsold. The Council has been working with Place Partners UK to undertake a strategic review, and this has confirmed that challenges with financial viability have underpinned a long history of delivery failures. This in turn leads to concerns that Columbia Threadneedle might sell the site to a buyer which does not share the Council's vision for its regeneration. Indeed, it could be bought by a speculator who could hold it dormant for a period of time or could seek to break it up and sell off separate parcels. Finally, Place Partners has confirmed that in order to achieve comprehensive regeneration, there will need to be significant public sector support on a scale beyond the ability of the Council to deliver. Place Partners have also identified 3 options for the Council. Firstly, do nothing. Secondly, support Columbia Threadneedle to find a new developer. And thirdly, to step in and acquire the site directly from Columbia Threadneedle. Clearly, do nothing is not a viable option. The buildings are deteriorating and cannot be allowed to decay much further. The Council regards option 3 as the one most likely to achieve comprehensive regeneration. However, the Council will not be able to purchase the site without substantial financial support from central government for purchase and site clearance. I'm pleased to be able to report that constructive discussions are taking place between our officers and Homes England to secure such funding. Therefore, this is a paper which proposes to delegate authority to officers to enter into discussions with Columbia Threadneedle with a view to expressing interest for the potential acquisition of the site, subject to due diligence and business case approval. This is not, I would stress, a decision to purchase the site, but just obtaining the authority to express an interest. It's also important to note that the due diligence process will take several months to complete. We need to obtain legal advice, planning advice, surveys, market intelligence, and to explore potential development partners. This is absolutely essential because of the potential risks to the Council, which we need to fully understand and fully mitigate. It will also take time to get sign-off of any financial support from Homes England. We therefore need to persuade Columbia Threadneedle to wait for us and not to sell the site off in parcels. It is surely in their interest to sell it to a buyer who can take the whole site off their hands in one go. The work we are doing with Homes England and our request to Columbia Threadneedle is to pause the sale of the site and give us time to complete our processes. I can only repeat that Anglia Square is the most important regeneration and development site in the city centre, and the Council is absolutely committed to overcoming the many challenges and seeing it redeveloped and regenerated as the whole community. The proposals in this report authorise a further important step in the process of making this vision a reality, and they send a strong message to Columbia Threadneedle that we are very serious about the comprehensive redevelopment of the site, and subject to central government funding and due diligence, we and the people of this city expect them to do the right thing, pause the open market sale to enable us to continue with the process, potentially purchasing the whole site. Thank you. So, I formally propose, okay, so I've done that. Are there any comments or questions from council colleagues, cabinet colleagues? Beth?
I think just to welcome the opportunity to get the appropriate information and go through a very clear process of this, because there's a level of complexity that is new to us, and making sure we're doing this in a very measured way, I really welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions from cabinet colleagues? If not, I'll move to group leader representatives. Martin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you very much. I fully welcome this, as you'll have heard received last night, and I think I speak for the rest of the group that this is absolutely the right way to go. Well, the caveat, of course, that we haven't made any decision here, it's just exploratory at this point. I think it's absolutely, that's what the level of caution on it as well is to be welcome. The question I suppose I've got, and I suppose it'd be more of a comment, is that we've got two big developments forthcoming for most of the council, probably the biggest size development for, well, a generation at least, with Norwich East and also this Anglia Square one. And I suppose it's making sure that we're getting the right expertise in to oversee these big flagship, almost redevelopment projects. And I was wondering maybe if you could explain a little bit more about the sort of human resources side of what we're doing to ensure that we make the right things happen at the right time, hopefully.
So, yes, we brought in a major projects executive director, John East, who is sitting on about two places away from you. He has considerable experience of major projects around the country and is well known. And John, you might like to come in and talk about two things. I'll just mention a few of the really impressive projects you've previously been involved with. I'm giving you permission to be a little bit boastful here, but also to talk about the delivery mechanism sitting beneath you.
So, I mean, I'm very kind of you, Peter, but I have obviously had a very considerable amount of experience over the years in this. but the kind of focus I have been involved in was the last project which I helped out was Minster, where the secure development partner for the students at the Central Integration Scheme is not hugely different in many respects to this Anglia Square, not least in that it had taken the City Council 25 years for the scheme not to happen. So after 25 years, we finally managed to unlock that project and secure the right part of that project to move it forward. But going back in time, to the amount of time, work in places in East London, some of the major areas that we've been working back then, and going back decades, I helped to unlock Wembley, revamped Wembley Stadium back in the 90s, at the time when the then owners of that and other were going to do a very cheap and cheerful refurbishment, which we managed to both not least the redevelopment of the stadium, modern stadium and national stadium, but also more importantly, regeneration surrounding area. So that's, I suppose, a little bit about me. I think in terms of, I actually understand where you're coming from. We have in Norwich some very significant projects, which are both of regional and I would say national significance. So to that end, we have brought in external expertise, not least placing partners who have very significant and simple experience and expertise in terms of regeneration at the national and international level. First, we sat up previously head of UK and then European Managing Director for Land Use Development. So actually, very significant regeneration cases like Newcastle and to go on throughout the country. So we're using their expertise particularly to look at the figures. We're working with more established or more people used to working in Norwich, such as Atson Young, on basically understanding values, and we have also brought in for East Norwich very significant local regeneration consultant society to help us as we work towards developing the student guidelines, in this case, that project. So I think the point being is that we have brought in very people who have got both a national and say international experience, but most importantly reputation, to make sure that as we move forward, we are doing something which most importantly protects the council position, secondly actually makes things happen, and thirdly makes things not just happen, but make things happen for the people of Norwich and in the nicest way, in the right way.
Very good, thank you for that answer, John. Weren't you involved with the Olympic Stadium?
Yes, I was.
You mentioned that, how modest of you.
Very long in the tooth, but yes, I support in having worked 7 years in the private sector. That means the public sector, but I knew in the years leading up to the Olympics in 2012 to make sure that, very importantly, that one of the most deprived boroughs in the country could take proper and full advantage of the benefits which the Olympics, as you can hear in Stratford, obviously brought.
Yeah, I seem to know that one quite well. Thank you, John. Thanks for the response. Judith, do you have a question?
I think it's very encouraging to hear John's credentials. And just to remind you, we did have a development in Norwich from Lebanese, and that was the Chapelfield project. I think we were very pleased with bringing up plans there. But the debate we had last night in council was very encouraging that we, all councils behind the steps to show interest and hopefully be able to acquire that. And I think that's very helpful. If anyone looks and sees what if there is other visions, they won't find any at this stage, and hopefully not going forward. And yeah, it is a very important site, and it has been empty for too long. But we do need a bit of luck on our side with people being patient to get our ducks in order.
Yeah.
And But one thing that has happened, we have got a new government, there are the cavalry coming over the hill perhaps, but we do need a bit of luck with us. But no, very pleased to support support the report.
Thanks, Judith. And as you and Martin have said, there was a motion before Council last night in support of this proposal, which was passed unanimously. And I think that sends out a really strong message to Columbia Threadneedle that we are all on the same page. Okay, so the recommendation is on page, where are we? Page 3 of this supplementary agenda. That's the thin one. Do I have a seconder? Emma, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much, that's passed unanimously. We now move to the exclusion of the public. So, this is to consider whether the present public should be excluded from the meeting during consideration of agenda item on the grounds that it involves likely disclosure of exempt information as specified in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, or it being confidential for the purposes of Section 100A(2) of that Act. So, can I see those in favour? Thank you. I'm proposing that. Obviously, one of you will second it. Yeah, Emma. Brilliant. Okay, thank you.